Hello everyone, welcome back to another Bible study video. Today we are doing Genesis chapter 41. I hope you guys have been enjoying this series so far. We started on 37. It is a story about Joseph and we are now on 41. So the topic or the theme is Pharaoh's dream. So Pharaoh was the king of Egypt. Okay, let's get into it. 2 full years later, so if you don't remember, but hopefully you've just been following along, Joseph had interpreted dreams of 2 other prisoners, and the dreams did happen. He also did ask one of the prisoner to please mention his name so that he can get out of prison because he was there and he didn't deserve it. He was innocent. But the prisoner forgot when he got out. And so now this is reminding us that he has been here for 2 years later. So 2 years later after the other prisoner left. So 2 full years later, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing on the bank of the Nile River. In his dream, he saw 7 fat healthy cows come out of the river and begin grazing in the marsh grass. So before I carry on with the dream of Pharaoh's dream, I wanted to ask you, so I wrote here the question so I don't forget. Have you been in a position where you feel like you have just been waiting and waiting and waiting? You have your dreams, you know what God has placed in your vision, in your head, in your imagination, but you just feel like you've just been waiting. You feel like you're in prison. You feel like you just cannot get out of this situation, or there's something stopping you from moving to the next chapter. Comment down below if you feel like that. Okay, let's carry on with the dream. So I'll start at 2. In his dream, he saw 7 fat, healthy cows come up and out of the river and begin grazing in the marsh grass. Then he saw 7 more cows come up behind them from the Nile, but these were scrawny and thin. These cows stood beside the fat cows. So those thin cows stood beside the fat cows on the riverbank. 4. Then the scrawny, thin cows ate the 7 healthy fat cows. At this point in the dream, Pharaoh woke up. So he was, I'm guessing, freaking out. Like, how do those thin cows eat the fat cows? And he woke up. 5. But he fell asleep again and had a second dream. This time he saw 7 heads of grain, plump and beautiful, growing on a single stalk. Then 7 more heads of grain appeared, but these were shriveled and withered, I don't know how to say that name, by the east wind. Then these thin heads swallowed up the 7 plump, well-formed heads. Then Pharaoh woke up and realized it was a dream. So again, now he dreams of 7 heads of grain that are plump and beautiful, growing, and then he dreamt of another 7 heads of grain that appeared, and they were all shriveled and basically dead, and they swallowed up the 7 plumpy, healthy, beautiful grains, and then he woke up again. Okay, so let's go to number 8. Then the next morning, Pharaoh was very disturbed by the dreams. So he called all the magicians and the wise men of Egypt. When Pharaoh told them his dreams, not one of them could tell him what they meant. So what does this mean? They were not gifted with the blessing of being able to interpret dreams. So God didn't give them that gift. Number 9. Finally, the king's chief cupbearer spoke up. Today I have been reminded of my failure, as he told Pharaoh. So he says, today I remember how I failed 2 years ago. 10. Some time ago, you were angry with the chief baker and me, and you imprisoned us in the palace of the captain of the guard. One night, the chief baker and I each had a dream, and each dream had its own meaning. There was a young Hebrew man with us in prison who was a slave of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he told us what each of our dreams meant. And everything happened just as he had predicted. I was restored to my position as cupbearer, and the chief baker was executed and impaled on a pole. 14. Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once, and he was quickly brought from prison. After he shaved and changed his clothes, he went in and stood before Pharaoh. Okay, now before I carry on, I just want to go through this one. I love how at 14 it goes, he sent for Joseph at once, and he quickly brought from prison. So again, comment down below. Have you ever been in a position where you feel like you've been waiting, and then suddenly things just happen quickly? Suddenly you go for one interview, and then you go for another interview like 3 days later, and then you get the job, like you get hired. And you know what I love about Joseph? It says here, after he shaved and changed his clothes, he went in and stood before Pharaoh. So he was called by a king, and he showed up looking his best. He didn't go there looking like someone who just came out of prison, who's miserable, who's angry at the world, who has a terrible attitude. He came out ready, looking good, looking like a king, because he's about to go talk to a king. Okay, let's go into 15. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell me what it means. But I have heard that when you hear about a dream, you can interpret it. And then this is when Joseph replied on 16. It is beyond my power to do this, Joseph replied, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease. Again, Joseph giving credit to God and putting God first. Like this gift of interpretation, it's not my power. I cannot take the credit. It is a gift from God. 17. So Pharaoh told Joseph his dream. In my dream, he said, I was standing on the bank of the Nile River, and I saw 7 fat, healthy cows come up and out of the river and begin grazing in the marsh grass. But then I saw 7 sick-looking cows, scrawny and thin, come up after them. I've never seen such sorry-looking animals in all the land of Egypt. These thin, scrawny cows ate the 7 fat cows. But afterwards, you wouldn't have known it, for they were still as thin and scrawny as before. Then I woke up. 22. In my dream, I also saw 7 heads of grain, full and beautiful, growing on a single stalk. Then 7 more heads of grain appeared, but these were blighted, shriveled, withered by the east wind. And the shriveled heads swallowed the 7 healthy heads. I told these dreams to the magicians, but no one could tell me what they meant. Joseph responded, both of Pharaoh's dreams mean the same thing. God is telling Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. I love that. So dreams, some obviously, not all of them, some of them, God is trying to tell you in advance what you need to prepare for. 26. The 7 healthy cows and the 7 healthy heads of grain both represent 7 years of prosperity. The 7 thin, scrawny cows that came up later and the 7 thin heads of grain withered by the east wind represent 7 years of famine. Okay, so Joseph is just interpreting it, just being honest and clear, and this is how it is. Hey, there's going to be 7 years of prosperity, and there's going to be 7 years of famine. So basically here I wrote, God gives you a preview of your future, but if you cannot obviously interpret, you probably won't get it. If you're not in tuned, if you're not spiritually fed, if you're not spiritually prosperous, and you are just in a famine spiritually, there are some messages from God that you are going to miss. 28. So Joseph is still speaking. This will happen just as I have described it, for God has revealed to Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. The next 7 years will be a period of great prosperity throughout the land of Egypt. But afterwards, there will be 7 years of famine, so great that all the prosperity will be forgotten by Egypt. So I'm guessing the swallowing up in the dream means like there's going to be so much famine that you even forget that we once had such great prosperity. Have you ever been in that situation where you are going through it, like you feel so broke and things are just not going well for you, that you forget how things used to be so good, because right now things have turned so bad? Okay, famine will destroy the land. This famine will be so severe that even the memory of the good years will be erased. As for having two similar dreams, it means that these events have been decreed by God, and he will soon make them happen. Number 33. Therefore, Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the land of the Egypt. Then Pharaoh should appoint supervisors over the land and let them collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 good years. Have them gather all the food produced in the good years that are just ahead and bring it to Pharaoh's storehouse. Store it away and guard it so there will be food in the cities. That way there will be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come to the land of Egypt. Otherwise, this famine will destroy the land. Okay, wow, we're not done, but I just wanted to unpack this a little bit. When Joseph obviously says you need to get someone who is intelligent and wise that you trust, put him in charge, and basically double the tax. So tax is usually 10%, but now 1/5. So 1/5 is 20%. So 20% needs to be put away for when the famine comes. We are prepared here in Egypt. Otherwise, if you don't do this, this will destroy the whole land, and people will even forget. It will erase all the good years. So again, comment down below if you would like to answer this. How much do you save from your income? So when you do your closing of your budget and you calculate your percentage, how much of your income, how much percentage goes to your savings, goes to your emergency fund, so that if an emergency happened at a time of a famine, did you put money away while you're in your time of prosperity, while you're in your time of plenty, while you have money to put away? Try and put away 20% as the Bible has asked. And this is for you. This is to look out for you. For when famine comes, you'll be prepared. So at your time of prosperity and at your time of abundance, put money away so that when winter comes, when famine comes, you have enough so that your land, your foundation is not destroyed. Number 37. Joseph's suggestions were well received by Pharaoh and his officials. So Joseph asked his officials, can we find anyone else like this man? So obviously filled with the Spirit of God. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has revealed the meaning of this dream to you, clearly no one else is as intelligent or wise as you are. You will be in charge of my court, and all of my people will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on my throne, will have a rank higher than yours. Wow. So it's the king of Egypt, and then it's Joseph, and then everyone else follows Joseph's orders. So Joseph was in charge of Potiphar, which is one of the Egyptian officers in Egypt. And Joseph just wanted to go back to that. He just wanted, for them to see that he's innocent and he can go back to being just in charge of a small bit of Egypt, which was Potiphar's home, like a tiny bit of Egypt. So this is whole of Egypt, and Joseph was just in charge of this and doing well there. And he just wanted to go back to that life because he was in prison for the wrong reasons. But God knew that no, you are praying to become a supervisor of the restaurant in this hotel, but I want you to be the general manager of the entire hotel. It's so crazy. Like me and my husband today, we were talking about how we pray for what we see is realistic. So we're going to pray according to our income. We're going to pray to our salary. So if we are praying for a home, for example, you will pray for a home you can see that you can afford. Now, how should God help you with that? Because you already got that, you already know that you can afford that. You should pray for something that you know that only God can help me in this. But it's hard to obviously imagine that because we just look at what we see and we believe in that. So here, God is again showing us to believe in those dreams. We have dreams. We have things that we see in our dreams, not sleeping dreams. Obviously, we can also see during sleeping dreams, but there's some things you just dream of, daydreaming, like you just vision it. And you're like, oh, I would love to own that business. I would love to live in that area. I would love to go and work overseas. I would love to do this. I would love to do that, because you can see it. But do you actually believe it? And that's the question. So Joseph saw the dream of him being the ruler. But because so many things have been happening, it's not something he's just been like fighting everyone to get because he saw the dream. He's just been wanting to be treated fairly. But God knew that you have to go through all of this to get to this, because maybe he wasn't going to get to this if he was still just Potiphar's God. All right, so 41. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and placed it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in fine linen clothing and hung a gold chain around his neck. Wow. Then he had Joseph ride in a chariot reserved for his second in command. And wherever Joseph went, the command was shouting, kneel down. So Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all Egypt, and Pharaoh said to him, I am Pharaoh, but no one will lift a hand or foot in the entire land of Egypt without your approval. Then Pharaoh gave Joseph a new Egyptian name, Zaphenath-Paneah, which I checked and it means revealer of secrets. He also gave him a wife whose name was Asenath. She was the daughter of Potipharah, the priest of On. So Joseph took charge of the entire land of Egypt. He was 30 years old when he began serving in the court of Pharaoh. the king of Egypt. And when Joseph left Pharaoh's presence, he inspected the entire land of Egypt. Okay, so before I carry on there, it says here he was 30 years old. And remember when his brother sold him, it told us that he was 17, which means he has been in Egypt for 13 years. Okay, 47. As predicted, for 7 years, the land produced bumper crops. And during those years, Joseph gathered all the crops grown in Egypt and stored the grain from the surrounding fields in the cities. He piled up huge amounts of grain like sand on seashore. Finally, he stopped keeping records because there was too much to measure. Wow. So he was obviously good at his job. He was making sure that there is enough for when that 7 years of famine comes, Egypt is prepared. I also just want to go back here to when Pharaoh says, I put you in charge of the land. Again, remember where he just came from, prison, and he went through it. So if you are in your moment of actually going through it, you feel like right now, my family has betrayed me, my friends have betrayed me, nothing is going well. I tried to get this job, I spoke to a friend, they still haven't mentioned me, like nothing is actually happening. Suddenly, God will make a move and everything will work out and you'll be in charge. He dressed him in fine linen. You'll be wearing your designer clothes, your Louis Vuitton bags. You'll be dressed in gold. People will be hearing from you. You will be in charge. It will get there. All you have to do is keep a good attitude and choose kindness. Joseph was so kind while he was in prison, meeting other people as well. Okay, so let's go to number 50. During this time, before the first of the famine years, 2 sons were born to Joseph. Oh, he had 2 little boys. And his wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On. Joseph named his older son Manasseh, which means to forget. For he said, God has made me forget all my troubles and everyone in my father's family. Joseph named his second son Ephraim, which means fruitful. For he said, God has made me fruitful in this land of my grief. 53. At last, the 7 years of bumper crops throughout the land came to an end. Okay. Then the 7 years of famine began. Just as Joseph had predicted, the famine also struck all the surrounding countries. But throughout Egypt, there was plenty of food. So if you're wise and intelligent, and remember wisdom, you only get wisdom from God. Read the book of Proverbs. If you're wise and intelligent, when famine comes, there will be plenty for you. No one around you will see that you are struggling because you were wise and intelligent in your time of plenty and prosperity. 55. Eventually, however, the famine spread throughout the land of Egypt as well. And when the people cried out to Pharaoh for food, he told them, go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you. So with severe famine everywhere, Joseph opened up the storehouse and distributed grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout the land of Egypt. And the people from all around came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe throughout the world. All right, that is it. Tomorrow we're going to 42 and look at the theme for 42. Joseph's brothers go to Egypt. Oh, we're about to see what's going to happen there. So obviously I've been asking you questions throughout just because it is a long one today. I didn't want to leave the keynote to the end because I didn't want to forget. But yeah, the few things that I got from here, I've wrote them down, is that suddenly God will open doors for you that no man can shut. Suddenly God will change your life, like, you will even forget that you even went through so much pain and heartbreak. And he can just change it like that suddenly. And when that happens, just show up as your best. Make sure you are prepared. I read this other story. I actually didn't read it. I watched it on YouTube. This other story. You know the guy who acts in 2012? The movie 2012. He's the one who... he's the one that breaks the news to the president that, hey, there's a big apocalypse coming, and I've done all the research, etc. But anyways, he also acts in 12 Years of Slavery. That guy. He had been practicing his script for years before they called him for an audition for a movie. And his sister was telling the story. His sister is a news anchor in the US. I don't know which news. But she was basically saying how when he finally got called to audition for a movie, and it was asking him to do a Shakespeare monologue, he knew every single monologue on Shakespeare because he was prepared. He was already practicing, like he's already got called for an audition. So whatever position you're in now, start preparing for wherever you're trying to go. So we are working on our glow up. We're trying to rebrand ourselves. I'm trying to, be debt free and become a successful businesswoman. I have to start acting like that now. I have to, show up as that now, so that when the opportunity comes, I am looking my best. I am ready for whatever, promotion I'm going to get. Joseph got this promotion and he took it, he grabbed it, and he went in, he took charge, and he's doing so well for himself. So that's one of the keynotes that I got. Another one that I also got is to prepare for when famine comes, for when, bad times comes, when the storms come and the rain comes. Make sure your foundation is solid, that it cannot be shaken. Build your foundation on a rock. There's a verse on Matthew talking about that, so that when the winds and the storm comes, your house cannot be shaken because the foundation is strong. And the best foundation you can build it on is God. God will give you the wisdom, the intelligence of how to do all of that. I really hope that this has been amazing. I enjoyed it, and I cannot wait for tomorrow's one, chapter 42, and I will see you then. Bye, guys.